Alrighty, welcome everyone to this week's episode where we explore the mission and the purpose and the differences between them. I'm Chris Dobbin from Brandion, your local brand guardian with over 20 odd years in branding and marketing from large to small. And I'm always here to help amplify your brand. And I'm joined today by my co-partner, Simoa. Introduce yourself, my friend. Welcome aboard.
AKA Branding Buff, AKA Mr. Logo. How's everybody doing today? Happy Friday, everyone.
I missed this, mate. I missed it. Come on brand. The branding buff. Yes.
A couple of poses.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. So I guess this is our third series episode in the series of exploring the starting foundational elements of building your brand. Yes. And as much as we enjoy going out and creating nice logos and nice visuals and putting people out there, some of those things just don't work and can't exist without getting some of these fundamentals, in place. And I guess that's why we've started with, week one, talking about your vision, which led to the purpose. And obviously they can get confused, and we've worked out from the last session how to do that. Yeah. And then there's the third statement, which a lot of people get confused with purpose as well, which is your mission statement. So here we are today exploring that one. So I guess what we'll do is we'll just go here and have a quick look at this, and we're going to unpack the difference between it. So to revisit, I guess, what we talked about last week about the clear differences between a purpose and a mission is, I guess, one way to say it is one is about the hopes and dreams you hope to achieve, so that you've got that why in your purpose. And then mission is more about how you're going to achieve it with short-term goals and how you go about that. That's the really simple version, and we could just shut up today, Dan, and we've just done the whole podcast right now. No, we're going to deep.
But for those who will stay, your purpose is an aspirational statement, and it's underlying. It doesn't necessarily have all its bits visible out to the public, but the mission does. The mission is the how. You know your purpose, and you know why you are in business, why you are doing things beyond the paying the bills, the making the money, and all of that stuff. The purpose is the foundational work, like we're doing today. We could just jump into funny visuals and create cool effects, but there's groundwork to be covered. Today is another step, the third one, and it is deeply connected with last week's. So for those who haven't seen last week's episode yet, today is going to require that you do the last week so you can build today's outcome, which is the mission statement. The mission statement draws a lot from the purpose, and it is the materialization of what the purpose is. Now we're getting more practical. What does my purpose, what does my vision mean in everyday activities?
Yeah, that's right. So we'll come back to, I guess, this again, just to reiterate what's on the screen there. Obviously, your company's purpose is a statement that describes its reason for being beyond just making money. It defines the company's values and impacts it wants to have on the world. A purpose statement should be meaningful, authentic, and specific, and it should guide the company's culture, decision-making, and actions. We went into detail last week about how to go about that. And as Simoa was talking through there, the mission statement is more of a concise way of describing the overall purpose of the brand and organization, and it outlines it in ways that it's how it serves, how it plans to achieve those goals, and typically more specific. It's the action-orientated people that love the mission statement, because they get to look at it and go, we know what we need to do, and we've got our north, and we know the steps to get there. Not just, and actually, I wanted to just a little side early on this one. Most times the purpose and the vision is the entrepreneur. A mission is always hard for an entrepreneur to follow because it's got steps, and entrepreneurs don't like those steps. So anyone that's listening to this episode, if you're an action-driven person, you love mission, and you're going to love this episode. If you're not an action-driven person, you like to just run by the gut feel of things, then you stay in your purpose lane and the vision lane, but you need to find someone who loves it. So just a little side tip for anyone. Yeah, anyone that's a mission, an entrepreneur that just wants to have the fun part. You have to get down and dirty, and that's what the mission statement's all about. So the step one is to obviously look at defining your purpose, and It's obviously identifying the reasons for existing, asking yourself why you do what you do and what you have to achieve. This could be a personal or organizational type purpose. Now, I guess we talked about this last week, but it's always good to revisit what we went on, the journey of last week. So do you want to talk a little bit about purpose and why that's important as a first step?
Not to take from today's session and today's episode time, because it just draws from last week. So a quick visit to last week's episode will explain you how to focus on your purpose and what that means. But I can give you a very good example that defines a purpose underlying a business. So for example, for a fitness business, and this is very, very close to home. This is actually my wife's fitness equipment business. The purpose for her to be in business, for her to have gone into business 15 years ago with her brother, and this was a brother-sister relationship. It's very important because it inevitably affects how the purpose of the business and the brand became defined. They had lost their father years earlier, a healthy athlete, athletic, very active man, to mental health and stress-related issues. It drove his heart to failure. This was a very strong purpose. And again, my skin is crawling right now. So this is a very good indicator of when you're on track with defining the purpose of your brand. The fitness business, going back to that, they had a very strong purpose. They wanted to help other people who are active to extend their quality life with their loved ones, with their friends, to be around for longer in a healthier way. That was the defining purpose. So this is for a fitness brand. Translate this into why it is that you do what you do. What is it that drove you to do this particular thing and not that other thing? What is that purpose? Hope that explained.
Yeah, no, fantastic. And I guess that ties in very closely to your values. And we went into this last week to fully understand, like we touched on this, like someone says, I just use Apple's version of this, but like it's not your version of your values, right? Because there are reasons why, like you've just highlighted in your explanation there, of why we're in business. And your values help you align why you make decisions. So if you have certain things around honesty, integrity, if you have values around money or a cause or whatever it is, by having these values in place, when something pops up and it just feels like it's a moral conflict, you'll know that that's against the values of your brand's direction and the business, and it'll help guide you on the next steps or whether you should take that opportunity or not, because it should feel right. That's essentially the moment it doesn't feel right, you kind of look back at your values and you go, that's probably why it's not feeling right, is because it's not in line with what we're trying to achieve as a company.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, again, drawing from last week's examples, we talked about communication, for example. The honesty and integrity are really fantastic values, but they're not necessarily, and this is completely without judgment, they're not necessarily the values that define every business. They should, as a general rule of thumb. However, if those are not things that you can live and die by, this is your living by the sword, dying by the sword moment. Don't try to look pretty for camera, because it will fall and you will either fall on it and die because you can't stand on it, or it just doesn't stick. And communication was the example we talked about last week. Saying you stand for communication and having closed doors inside your organization is not a good way of living through your values. If somebody has something to say, they don't feel safe, they can say it without repercussions, consequences, some level of segregation. Communication is not strong. This plays into culture. If the culture is not strong, you're going to have a problem with retention. You see how these values just tie into one another in the next over, in the next over. So that is something that you want to align with. Identifying the values that you can day in, day out live and die by, and these will become your best decision makers when the moments arise where you need to try to make a decision, and you can either go one way, which looks great, but the other way also has value, also has promising outcomes. The values will definitely help you steer without as much doubt into one way or the other.
Yep. And another way values can be looked at is also when we're developing the brand identity. Like if you say yours is a serious brand, then we know that there's certain aspects of ways to communicate seriousness. If it's a fun brand with a vibrant feel and it's kind of comical, or there's something like that, we can take it in a different direction visually to illustrate that. So that's another way values can be used. But it has, as you've touched on, it touches all touch points. It's not just visuals. It can touch your staff members. And then also the most important part of this is the people who are going to consume your messages. They need to buy into your value so that they go, I feel like this is where I need to be because this brand is talking to me because I have those same ideals and it's where I want to take myself. So hence the importance of that step in developing your mission statement. And I guess I just led into that, which is the third one, which is consider your audience. So who is it addressing? So your mission statement, is it talking to your customers, employees, investors, or the general public? This is something you need to take on board. And I guess it should accommodate all of them. But we understand in a perfect world, that's not the case. But I guess, Sim, do you want to talk about that, how a mission statement talks to different audiences and how we kind of adapt it?
I'll rather talk about the ways of not stating the mission is to go through is to go through a compilation of lingo and gobbledygook terms, factoids, and whatnot that can connect either or with your audience or with your team, your talent, your staff.
Yep.
It's important to be able to keep a bridge because your staff is what makes possible your promise to deliver to your audience, and they're not necessarily the same, but there needs to be a bridge where your language is communicated in that concise but relatable manner, if that makes sense.
No, it does. Yeah, no, that sounds perfect. So I guess like we've touched on this, and I think last week we went right into considering your audience, and this is why mission and purpose can get really confusing for people who aren't working in this on a daily basis. But hopefully with what we're saying today is when you put the foundations into your purpose and your vision, they will lead into your mission, and then that'll allow you to identify the steps you need to take to address each of these highlighted moments we're having right now. So this is why we get to the absolute moment where it is crafting the statement. So it's obviously based on the previous considerations and reflects on the way that we've gone about your purpose, your values, and looking at your orders. So this is probably where you were touching on a little bit before about making it concise and clear. So I guess, do you want to maybe talk through that as an example?
Well, examples. One of our current clients has a very clear and very aligned mission statement. So much so that inside every meeting room in their office space, they have that mission statement, and it communicates to their audience, and it also jolts the residing talent, the team, the staff, to be reminded of that every single day. This is personal experience. My wife has worked with this client of ours, and an accounting level. It's an accounting firm, and you don't expect accounting firms to have a strong belief about much. You don't expect them to care much about their brand identity because they usually are seen as crunch number fiends. This is what they do. They process information that pertains to a financial domain, and they do it for somebody else, usually not very outgoing. Well, this brand, this accounting firm, actually breaks that mold from start to finish. They have the rats, they have the crunchy number fiends, but they have very outspoken and very outgoing, well-spoken people that can represent that brand. And once that mission statement aligns both with audience who visit and sit down in the living room and are looking at this mission statement, and it connects and reminds the talent, the outcome is a much, much better product that that comes out to as a result of that alignment.
Yep. So I've actually got some examples I just want to put on the screen at the bottom there. So Amazon's to be the Earth's most consumer-centric company where customers can find and discover anything they want to buy online. So this is a good example of where they've identified their values and their understanding that the customer is the most important person in this process, the person that buys the products, and they understand that it needs to be on, and it's online. Now, the thing about this is if you're going to work for Amazon, you know the outcome of that mission statement and you know the steps that are taken to get that item in there. There's obviously a lot deeper things, and we'll talk about that in later programs or episodes, but that's just a really good idea. Nike is another one, to bring inspiration and innovation to every athlete in the world. Like, once you identify what a mission statement is about and you see these examples, they start to really highlight the importance of getting it right. Because if some of these brands got it wrong, you just wouldn't identify with them. So Coca-Cola, to refresh the world in mind and spirit, to inspire moments of optimism and happiness through brands and actions. That one, I get it's a little bit different depending on if you're a health nut, as our branding buff guy is. I'm sure Coca-Cola is not high on his list of things to drink, but so it probably doesn't give him optimism and happiness. But
Funny factoid. Just drop this in there. Coca-Cola is my favorite drink. It is also the biggest poison that I had to eradicate from my life. I did that 3 years ago. And
there you go.
So I'm happy with both having tested the product, but it's literally acid. So
yeah,
it doesn't help in the way of living a long, fruitful, healthy life.
Yeah, that's right. So moving to another one that probably is a little bit contentious, but it's also something that we just can't live our lives without these days, is without a search engine. And Google were easily able to identify that very early on in their life cycle, even though the founders of Google were absolute geeks. They knew from the very beginning that they just wanted to bring all the world's information and be accessible. They also wanted it to be the quickest, and they were able to identify that. If you've ever read the Google book on the foundation of that, like, they weren't making money forever. It wasn't until another guy came along from some other company, which I won't go into detail there, but he brought the ad campaign software across, and that's when they started making money. And then from there, they were able to go off and do what they're doing. And because they had a captive audience, everyone was searching, and they had the results. The ads created the financial means for them to move forward. But the first step they were going for wasn't about making money, and that's why we're talking about their purpose was quite clear and their vision was quite clear. And then the mission, how they went about it, was also how Google became what Google is today. So anyway, that was just a couple of examples that I've just sprung up on Sim. Sim wasn't even aware that they were going to pop up, but he's pretty happy now that they're on the screen. So
yes, and I just like, sorry to interrupt, Chris. I just like to let people know that they should be approaching this step in building brand identity with a strategic mindset. Why do I mention this? Because now you know these brands and you look at their mission statements and you can visualize what they look like. And obviously the brand representative is always going to be a brand's logo. And revisiting Amazon, for example, I think that's a very good strategic materialization of this mission statement. If we have taken a look at Amazon logo, you identify the smile, you discover anything they may want to buy online. And if you'll notice the smile, where it starts in the logo, in the word Amazon, and where it finishes, some people know this, some people have never thought about it, but this is where your mission statement really locks in everything that you promise. The smile goes from the A to Z, which is a complete array of products that customers can indeed find online in Amazon, on the Amazon website. So This is the strategic tie-in, and this is why we need to put these pieces in places so that the visual outcome that manifests through the logo, through the visual identity, through the website, through the experience, customer service, whatever that may be, how it reflects itself so well with the Amazon brand. They're the Earth's most customer-centric company, where customers can find and discover anything they might want to buy online. And this is a very interesting materialization of that mission statement. There you go. Yeah. So I thought that that's very pertinent to bring up at this stage, because it's hard to, from this viewpoint, look at the outcome. And the outcome, for some of you, is already going deeper than you initially may have expected when you started listening to these blabbermouths about amplifying your brand.
Getting into it, yeah.
Maybe you came in just to get a logo or understand how to build a logo because you want to do it yourself. Well, building a logo has much more and has many deeper levels to it than just putting a graphic together. Amazon is a very good example, and any of the other examples that Chris has brought up and put up on screen are working in that strategic level. So keep your mind open to doing this work right now properly, because at the later stages, you will get your outcome much more simplified.
Exactly. So it seems really obvious, but you need to refine and revise. So we talked about this last week. Which was it early about the vision? I can't remember. It was one of them. We said about, the thing about it is not to keep it a secret. It's actually to let people know. So don't just go, oh wow, I've nailed our mission statement. Shh, don't tell anyone. Keep it
keep it inside. Yes.
Not what this is all about. You want to be on top of the mountain, loud and proud, and shouting away and telling everyone this is what you're all about. We did talk about it had to be detailed, but detail doesn't mean you give away all the IP. It's just telling people how you're going to do it, why you exist.
Yeah, it's the acid test, really. There's a number of ways you can do this, and the best way is not to. It's funny to advise people not to get personally attached when so much goes into person with the purpose and the vision and all this, but try not to get personally attached to the feedback you receive. Test your assumptions, put it out to the sample public that you want to work with, put it out with the existing members of your team, and see how they identify the things that you meant to through your mission statement. This is a good acid test. It's a moment to review and refine and have your own assumption steps tested. Again, perspective of self is something we're not very good at, but this stage, creating a round of reviews and refinements is extremely useful, and fine-tuning your brand at this stage.
Yep. And I mean, when we went through this process, we even coming up with the name Brandion, brands for the ages. That was one of our goals, was if we develop brands, we want it to last a long time for clients. We want it to be something they can keep building upon.
Yes.
And then obviously from that, we brought up the tagline, which is amplify your brand, because we want them also not to just have a brand that they love and they have around for a long time, but they know how to amplify it and put it out there. Because I've seen some amazing brands that just have had no leverage because they just haven't known how to put the vision and the purpose and the mission into action.
Yes.
So anyway, we're living and breathing it ourselves, trying to go about that. And I guess that's why we're here today. So we have step 6, which is what we've just talked about, the getting on top of the mountain and being really proud. So once you're really happy with it, it's about putting it into the steps and making decisions and actions on it so that you can serve it as a guidepost, I guess, to help you get to your next step. Do you have an example you'd like to refer to with this or talk to that? So, yeah.
Yes, both on the communication level and the implementation level. So let's start with the communication, because this informs then the implementation. The communication aspect of it, our client is a very good example. Mission statement in every single room. I worked at a company that had their mission statement clearly printed out and made into handouts for every employee. I know that I came from Portugal, and very, very small business oriented, very small vision oriented businesses that I had worked up until that point. And it was a very refreshing, very inspirational way of coming into this new company and playing at a global level, and be reminded of it every day through every email that we received from HR, through the communication that we kept inside the team, through the handouts that we were given. We lived that purpose, we lived that mission, and we had very clearly defined mission, which takes us into the implementation. You have your purpose, you have your mission statement. Your mission statement internally in everyday activities can come down to something as simple as this: break the goal up in the yearly, into the quarterly, into the monthly, weekly, and daily. That's as simple as it gets. I can't get any more simple. If you want to know what your mission looks like from an operational everyday standpoint, just do this: break it up into yearly, quarterly, monthly, weekly, daily. It will simplify your processes, your activities, and keep everybody focused as to what their tasks are and how that helps them go back and circle and achieve the purpose.
Fantastic. All right, so we've hit number 6 on this, and I think that's the end of our little journey today when we're talking about the mission, except for just to quickly revise what we've talked about today, which is a mission statement has to be clear, has to be concise, and has to be purposeful. Okay, so make sure, that's why we said in the previous step, just tell others about it, talk through it, try to actually see whether it hits the mark and people understand what you do and where you're going. It's a great acid test to see whether people are really understanding what you're trying to achieve. So I will just, again, because we do this every week, is just recap the process. Obviously, we've defined there on the screen the difference between our purpose and the mission. We've touched on the fact as if you don't know how to define your purpose, and we went deeper last week, please check out last week's episode where we went into that process at a deeper level. We also went into identifying your values in that, because it is part of developing your purpose. Consider your audience. This is obviously something that if you don't understand who you're targeting, then you're not going to be able to clearly communicate, because you don't understand what they're hoping to hear. Because most people do forget about this. Our brand isn't what we think it is. It's what whoever is receiving the communication, or what we're communicating, what they would perceive it as, right? So you've got to make sure they fully understand it. Yeah. Crafting the statement. So obviously, this is what we help all our clients with, is finding this statement. So if you are struggling with this and you want to reach out to us, we are more than happy to hear from you. And please, as you can see at the bottom of the screen, visit brandion.agency, and we are more than happy for you to have an inquiry and have a chat with us, and we will take you through a discovery session, which is what we do with most of our clients in the early stages. Actually, all our clients, what am I saying? It's the given thing we do. Revise and refine it. Tell people, don't be scared to tell people about it. Finally, communicate and implement it, and you are rock and rolling. Do you have anything to add to that there, or signing off? Because I guess we're coming to the end of the program for today.
Yes, we have a number of exercises and tools to help people figure out and actually put into practice everything that we've discussed. It takes time, and you wouldn't be expected to achieve the best result at the first take. We've been at it for 20 years, and we're here to help. Anything that you might want to ask, comment, we'll let you know. Just if you're watching this on Facebook or LinkedIn, anywhere, place a comment. We'll be happy to assist in any way possible. Thank you very much for your time today, everyone.
Yep, and we look forward to hopefully helping you amplify your brand.
Yes.
Talk to you guys next week. See ya. Bye.
See ya.